now moving on to the next edition of the Front Office Frenzy, which, if you don't know what the Front Office Frenzy is, it's the segment where I draw a team randomly out of this hat, and in 15 minutes or less, I lay out a logical and reasonable path to the playoffs for that team. 15 minutes or less, I have basically no notes in front of me. I have the record in 2020, I have the cap space for that team, and I have the amount of draft picks that team has, and maybe one or two smaller bullet points if I think it's interesting enough and it's a talking point to kind of carry me through the segment. And again, the rest, I basically have to talk about and come up with the answers off the top of my head. So we've covered a couple of teams so far. We're moving along in the segment pretty nicely. And today's team is going to be... Oh, God. Oh, God damn it. Today's team is going to be the Dallas Cowboys. And the reason I kind of curse a little bit is because this is not a team I was looking forward to do. This is going to be a difficult one for me. I need to scroll to the Cowboys in my notes here really quickly. Okay, the Cowboys. I'm not thrilled about this one. This is going to be really difficult for me. We didn't get it in 15 minutes or less last episode, so hopefully I'll be able to get it in this episode. Let's start our timers right about now. The Cowboys went 6-10 in 2020. They have $18 million in cap space. They have 6 to 10 draft picks in the upcoming draft, depending on where those compensatory picks happen. They could potentially have a third round compensatory pick, but most of those will probably occur in the 4th and 5th round, like most others. The Cowboys are a difficult fix because there's not a lot that I can do personnel-wise, like players on a football field, that can really help the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys' problem is really their coaching staff at this point. But again, as much as I, say that the Cowboys are a difficult fix, they went 6-10 last year, and they still had a chance to win the division. So me saying, okay, how do I turn the Cowboys into playoff contenders? That division is so bad that they already kind of have a chance of being playoff contenders. If they beat the Giants in week 17, they would have had a really good chance to make it into the playoffs. I don't know if it was exactly a control your own destiny, but regardless of that, I mean, they even after the season that they had, they still had a chance to be into the playoffs. So you take that and you say, well, they're kind of there, but they're really a bad football team, so they shouldn't be there. I guess the biggest takeaway really for me is I think Mike McCarthy is the wrong coach for the Cowboys, and I think that the only person that thinks that Mike McCarthy is the right coach for the Cowboys is Jerry Jones, which presents a big problem because as we've seen in recent history, Jerry gets what Jerry wants, even if Jerry's absolutely wrong about what's best for the football team. And who am I to say that, who is right and wrong? I'm just somebody on the internet, but regardless, I think most people, the general perception of Jerry Jones's decisions over the past couple of seasons is that they're genuinely the wrong decisions, especially when it comes to paying Dak Prescott. The reality is that the team underperformed massively last season. I mean, that was a Super Bowl contending roster over the past 2 seasons, and they just have not put it together. And when you don't put it together like that, you really need to look at the coaching staff. Look, I'm really not a fan of Mike McCarthy as the head coach of the Cowboys. I don't think he does a good job. I think he's lazy. I think he doesn't know what he's doing, and I think he bamboozled Jerry into getting a job. I mean, the telling play of last season, I think everybody will remember this when I speak about it, is when Andy Dalton got absolutely crushed on a late hit and nobody came to help Andy Dalton up off the turf. That team is in disarray. It's a fragmented locker room, and it starts from the top. And that is directly the problem with Mike McCarthy, is that nobody really seems to care on that team right now. I mean, and they've got some really good pieces. So if it were up to me, I would have fired Mike McCarthy a couple weeks ago. I know it sucks. Normally it's very, I guess, frowned upon to only give a head coach one season, but truth be told, for me, I've already seen enough. I thought the hire was a bad hire to begin with. I would have fired McCarthy, and I would hire somebody like Todd Bowles or Eric Bieniemy. I think in this specific situation, I would hire Todd Bowles, seeing what his Buccaneers defense did to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And really, the Cowboys' defense was horrendous last year. Todd Bowles is a good defensive coach that could definitely come in and try and shore up that defense. I think Todd Bowles would be a great coach for the Dallas Cowboys. But again, Mike McCarthy is the coach now. He's probably going to be the coach this season, and I would hedge bets that he's probably the coach in 2 seasons from now, because Jerry is just not good with these types of decisions. So number one priority, I think, is finding a new head coach, because when you have talent on the Cowboys like the Cowboys have, and they continue to play that bad, it's something that stems from the top. It's either a culture problem or it's a head coaching problem. I think it's a head coach and a culture problem, but mostly the head coach, because those two kind of coincide together. So the Cowboys do have a lot of cap space. What was it I said? 18. Oh, that's not necessarily a lot of cap space, but they're above the cap, so $18 million in cap space. For me, you realistically need to do everything to re-sign Dak Prescott if you're going to be a contender in the NFC East and you're going to be a serious contender in the playoffs. Because look, realistically speaking, I don't think that Jerry is going to re-sign Dak. I think he'll opt for Dalton because of how much Jones is going to have to pay to Dak in order to get him to stay. I think if Jerry Jones really wanted to pay Dak, it would have happened already. I'm not really a fan of this cat and mouse game that Jerry's playing with the money. I don't think it's going to happen, but if it were me, and that's what this segment is about, is if I were the GM in that front office, what would I do? If I were me, look, I would say Dak's coming off an injury. You can use that as leverage for getting a more team-friendly long-term contract, and you go from there. I mean, it kind of sucks to use the injury as leverage, but Dak is going to be expensive. He is going to be expensive. And Dak, the real reason for keeping Dak is the leader of that locker room. And without him, the team completely imploded last season. And sure, there were some other injuries that were keeping the Cowboys down, but when Dak Prescott got injured, you could just feel the energy get completely sucked out of that football team. And Mike McCarthy just could not keep it together in terms of having a stable locker room that wanted to play every week. It just looked like the Cowboys didn't want to play last season. The rest of the offense is really well put together. You've got Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver. Cole Beasley, I believe. Is Cole Beasley in Buffalo, or is he in Dallas? I'm having a huge brain fart right now, and I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. But that's one of the cons of the segment is if I get it wrong, I get it wrong. I can't do research before to make sure that I'm right. So you've got a couple of really good wide receivers, a decent tight end. And you've got Ezekiel Elliott, which is obviously one of the better rushers in the league. He had a bit of a down year. He's been struggling recently, but he's still a really good running back. So really, and of course you got the offensive line. So really the offense is pretty set for the Cowboys. They're going to have to make some decisions soon. But really, the thing that matters with the Cowboys is who's going to be the quarterback. And again, I would do everything that I can to keep Dak Prescott. Even though he shouldn't want to play for Dallas, he somehow does. I mean, he's a very good leader in that locker room, and he's a good quarterback. So you really need to do everything you can to keep him. Other than that, a couple of members of the offensive line are going to be free agents. Cameron Irving is going to be a free agent. He got hurt. There is another offensive lineman. And again, it seems to be a running theme with this segment. I always forget who those offensive linemen are. And I can't remember the name, but try and shore up the offensive line. The offensive line has been one of the better parts of the Cowboys. Again, had a down year due to some injuries. It's been a better part of that Cowboys team for a long time. You need to try and keep those guys together. The defense is really where the tough decisions are going to have to be made. A lot of it depends on what new defensive coordinator Dan Quinn wants his defense to be like. Dallas has 3 of its starting defensive backs heading into free agents. Xavier Woods, Chidobe Awuzie, and Jordan Lewis. Those guys are going to be free agents this year. So you're going to have to make some tough decisions about where you want to spend that money, especially if you're going to re-sign Dak Prescott, which when you re-sign Dak Prescott, that cap space is going to shrink from like, what was it, 18 million? I've a couple of sites that I've seen said 18 million. Some people say it's going to be more than that, but whatever it is, that signing is going to shrink the cap space, the salary cap. I don't know how I got calorie. Anyways, regardless of that, the defense is where you're going to be needing to make the tough decisions. Xavier Woods, Chidobe Awuzie, Jordan Lewis. If you're Dallas, you're going to have to probably be comfortable with losing 2 out of the 3 of those. I think the one that you probably don't want to lose is Xavier Woods. You really don't have any other good safeties apart from Xavier Woods, so really need to make sure that you re-sign him and then try and fulfill your other needs in the draft. And, all the thing is, and why I say you need to be comfortable with losing 2 out of the 3 is because all of those guys are coming off of rookie contracts. So they're in that position in their careers where they want to have their first big payday. And again, with the moves that you're going to have to make to try and keep that offense together, there is going to be very little money around to pay all of those the deals that they feel like they should deserve, even though they didn't play really well last season and they had a rough season. They don't have that leverage. They're still going to want to get paid. Again, so I think out of the 3 of them, you probably want to go after Xavier Woods. He is probably the best safety that you have, and you're going to need to address the other areas in the draft. Aldon Smith is a free agent as well, I think, and he was your best pass rusher last year, so I think you probably have to let him go too. And I know saying, oh, he's your best pass rusher last year, but that's because you have DeMarcus Lawrence on the line as well, and DeMarcus Lawrence just has to have a better year. He has to play better football. I don't know whether that's just DeMarcus Lawrence having a bad year, or again, if the coaching staff and the bad coaching really affected DeMarcus Lawrence like it did the rest of the Cowboys team last year. But DeMarcus Lawrence is going to have a better year. Going into the draft, we're going to have to load up on defense in this draft. I mean, if you re-sign Dak Prescott as the quarterback and you really get all the offensive players back together again, you're going to have to focus on the draft. I would load up on defense in this draft. With your first round pick, I think Caleb Farley, the cornerback out of Virginia Tech, is probably your best bet at that position, or whatever the best cornerback is available in that draft, you draft him. I'm just going to say Farley for the sake of saying Farley, because I think I said that Patrick Surtain should be drafted by the 49ers when I did the 49ers in the front office frenzy. So I'm going to see Caleb Farley here. As we just talked about, a lot of the defensive backs are going to be free agents this season. It makes sense to take a cornerback in the first round here. So I say whichever one is available, make sure you get him in the first round. Shore up that defensive back, the defensive back core, and you'll be good from there. Round 2, you need to try and get another person on the defensive line. Look, the Cowboys were horrible at stopping the run last year. Again, I don't know how much of that is due to bad coaching or whether they're just really, really bad. I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence really did not have a good year. So whatever defensive tackle you take, I think maybe Davion Nixon out of Iowa would be a really good person to fill that void. He might be gone by the time you're picking in the second round because there's not really a lot of good defensive tackles in this draft, but you need a big boy in the middle of the line to try and shore up the run a little bit. I think Nixon would be a great pick. Again, defensive tackle out of Iowa. And then there is no third round pick unless the Cowboys get a compensatory pick. Odds are that they do get one. I think that you should probably use this pick to get another linebacker, somebody that can try and, be a little bit of a depth player to support a player like Leighton Vander Esch, who's probably your best defensive player besides DeMarcus Lawrence. Sean Lee is a free agent, I remember seeing, and he is a good linebacker, but he's been hurt in and out, on and off, and he is a free agent as well, so he may not want to come back to the Cowboys. So I think you should probably use that third round compensatory pick if they get one. I'm kind of assuming that they do. So whether it's the third round pick or a fourth round pick, you're going to want to spend that on a linebacker to try and again reinforce that front seven on the defense, get a little bit better at stopping the run there, and get some depth, because I think one of the real things that exposed the Cowboys last season was their real lack of depth at certain positions. So that is the front office frenzy for the Dallas Cowboys. I felt very disoriented that time, and it's probably because it was so difficult, because I literally had so many thoughts going through my head on what I should and should not do. If I were the general manager for the Dallas Cowboys, you could stop your stopwatches there. Thank you so much for watching that segment. So tune in next time to figure out if we do your team next on the Front Office Frenzy segment. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this segment from the Hard Headed Sports Podcast. You've heard what I've had to say. Now I'm interested to hear what you think as well. If you enjoyed this highlight from the show and want to watch more highlights from the show as they come out after the show's completion, you should definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you're interested in listening to the entire show in its full-length entirety, you should follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all very soon.